It is 1922, and a young woman named Mollymaggia is sitting in a dentist chair in Orange, New Jersey. Her jaw is on fire. It has been on fire for 2 years. The dentist pulls another tooth. The socket does not heal. It bleeds. Then it bleeds more. Then the bone beneath it simply crumbles. She is 22 years old. She will be dead within months. Her death certificate will list the cause as syphilis. It was not syphilis. If you like this type of video, don't forget to like and subscribe. In 1898, Marie and Pierre Curie isolated a new element in their Paris laboratory. They called it radium. It glowed, a soft blue-green luminescence that pulsed in the dark like something alive. Nobody had seen anything like it. And because nobody understood it, they decided it must be good. Within a decade, radium was in everything. Chocolate bars, face cream, toothpaste, health tonics sold in pharmacies with cheerful labels and medical endorsements. You could soak in a radium bath. You could drink radium water from a special ceramic crock left to steep overnight. Doctors prescribed it. Magazines celebrated it. The word radium on a product label was a selling point. What radium actually does to a human body was not yet on anyone's radar. By 1917, the United States was at war, and the military had a problem. Soldiers in the field needed to read instruments in the dark, compasses, watches, control panels, without light. Radium paint solved that problem. The United States Radium Corporation, based in New Jersey, began mixing radium into a luminous paint they branded Undark. The name alone tells you everything you need to know about how the era understood this substance. They hired women to paint the dials. Young women, mostly in their teens and early 20s, from the surrounding neighborhoods in Orange and Newark. They came because the pay was good, the factory was clean by the standards of the time, and the work was considered skilled. More importantly, it was considered safe. Safer than a munitions factory. Safer than most of what was available to a working woman in 1917. They were told nothing to the contrary. The technique required precision. A brush had to come to a perfect point before touching the tiny numbers on a watch face. The supervisors taught them a method. Lip, dip, paint. Put the brush to your lips. Dip it in the radium paint. Apply it to the dial. Repeat. All day, every day. Some of the women painted their nails with it before leaving for dances in the evenings. Their teeth glowed in the dark when they smiled. They thought it was fun. The men in the laboratory upstairs wore lead aprons. They worked behind protective screens. They used tongs to handle radium samples. They never touched it with bare hands. The women painting dials 2 floors below them were putting it in their mouths. Nobody told them. Years passed. The war ended. The dial painting continued. The corporation expanded. And then, slowly, one by one, the women began to get sick. Teeth loosening. Jaw pain that would not stop. Dentists who could not explain why a young, healthy woman's jawbone was dissolving. Exhaustion so deep it had no bottom. Abscesses that opened and would not close. Mollymaggia lost her teeth. Then pieces of her jawbone began to come away. Her dentist, attempting to remove infected tissue, accidentally lifted out her entire lower jaw with his hand. It came out in one piece. She died in September 1922. The company's own physician signed off on syphilis as the cause. It was not the only false diagnosis. Women kept dying. Women kept being told their conditions were unrelated to their work. The corporation had by this point conducted its own internal studies. Their own scientists understood what was happening. They said nothing. Gracefryer had been a dial painter from 1917. By 1925, her spine was collapsing. She needed a steel brace to hold her upright. Her jaw had developed tumors. She was in constant pain. She was 26 years old. Grace wanted to sue. She could not find a lawyer to take her case. For 2 years, she searched. The corporation was large and well-connected, and the science of radiation damage was new enough that most attorneys did not believe a case could be won. In 1927, she found one willing to try. She was joined by 4 others: Edna Hussman, Catherine Schaub, Quinta MacDonald, Albina Larice. 5 women, all in their 20s and early 30s, all dying. The press named them the Radium Girls. The name stuck. The corporation responded with delay, motion after motion, continuance after continuance. The strategy was explicit. Run the clock. Wait for the plaintiffs to die. A dead woman cannot testify. Gracefryer was deteriorating so rapidly that her attorneys petitioned the court for an emergency hearing. She might not survive to see a trial. The judge granted it. The case settled in 1928. The 5 women each received $10,000, a pension of $600 per year, and coverage for all future medical expenses. It was not enough. It was never going to be enough. Edna Hussman's settlement arrived after she had already lost most of her jaw. Catherine Schaub would spend the remaining years of her life in a wheelchair. But the case did something no lawsuit had done before. It established for the first time in American legal history that an employer could be held responsible for the health of its workers. That a company could not knowingly expose employees to hazardous conditions and then deny the connection when those employees became sick. That precedent did not exist before Gracefryer and 4 dying women dragged themselves into a New Jersey courtroom. What also did not exist before the Radium Girls was a reliable body of data on what radiation actually does to human tissue over time. The women who survived agreed to be studied. They submitted to tests and examinations for the rest of their lives. Their bones, their blood, their organs after death. That data, drawn from their bodies, directly shaped the safety standards adopted during the Manhattan Project. Scientists working on the atomic bomb in the 1940s operated under protocols built in part on what the Radium Girls had taught the world, at the cost of their own bodies. Some of the women lived longer than expected. The radium lodged in their bones emitted radiation for the rest of their lives. Researchers could detect them in a dark room. They glowed. Mollymaggia's body was exhumed 5 years after her death to test this theory. The coffin was still radioactive when they opened it. The death certificate still said syphilis. In 1938, the United States passed the Federal Food, Drug, and Cosmetic Act, the first federal law requiring companies to prove their products were safe before selling them to the public. The Radium Girls were part of the pressure that produced it. In 1970, the Occupational Safety and Health Act created OSHA, establishing federal standards for workplace safety. The women who painted dials in Orange, New Jersey did not live to see most of this. Most of them did not live past 40. But the framework that protects every American worker who enters a factory, a laboratory, a hospital, a mine, a construction site today was built in part on what was done to them. They put the brush to their lips. They painted the dials. They glowed in the dark. And nobody told them why.